Hello, and welcome to me designing my own sketchbook notebook cover. I'm Kara, aka Clefairy Creations. Let's get started with this video. So first things first, I did not know what I want to draw on this notebook. So instead of diving in with markers, I thought the wise decision would be to grab a pencil and sketch something out first. And of course, naturally with me, the first thing to come to mind were flowers. So that's what we end up going with as a theme for the front of this notebook. But I thought I'd take this time as I'm drawing out these flowers on the notebook to kind of talk to you and connect with how I want this channel to go and what it means to be Clefairy Creations. So enjoy the video of me drawing and then this kind of video essay of me talking and telling you about how I got started with art. So the first memory I have of me getting into art was when I was super, super young, like 4 or 5. And I had this neighbor who was an artist, and she would encourage me to draw her whatever my little heart desired. She was super sweet. And I always enjoyed going over to their house because I was like, I drew you this bunny sitting on a heart with a flower. And she wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But she would have me explain it to her, and not like in a condescending or judgmental way. She just honestly wanted to know my thought process behind the art that I was creating for her as a 4-year-old. And looking back at that now, that is freaking amazing. I love that. So that's kind of what started me drawing almost every day. I would draw at least one thing for her a week, and then she would also draw me something. And it wasn't until like many, many years later that I was like, this is not normal. Like, you don't just meet these people off the streets randomly. I mean, granted, she was my next door neighbor, but like still, I don't hear that many people having these stories, kind of like how I had with my art upbringing. So it's kind of like a special little memory for me. And then years later, she compiled all the drawings, or probably most of them. I can't hold her to keeping all of the ones that I had made for her, into a binder, and she gave it to me when I graduated high school. And I was like, this is so freaking sweet. Like, she did not have to do that. So yeah, she kind of got me started with being interested in art and creating it, and then also having a mission for whenever I did create things, being able to explain my thought process, because as she would reciprocate that, she would be like, oh, this is what I drew for you. And then she would explain it to me, and she would point out how we each had a different way of approaching something, and that is really what made art unique and special. After those initial years, though, of like, making out of marker or colored pencil, just these random drawings that I would make for my next door neighbor, eventually I did actually start getting into creating art for myself. And because I liked it as a hobby, it definitely turned into my main hobby all throughout elementary school, middle school, high school. And it's really interesting to look back because I have these old sketchbooks that I would use, and especially like end of elementary school into middle school, when I was like 10, 11 years old, there was a bunch of really like memey types of drawings that were just like so random. Like, I can't even begin to explain, but think of the aesthetic that a 10-year-old would have. And it was probably whatever that average aesthetic is, kind of chaotic, crazy, weird, but also cute, question mark. So yeah, that's kind of, that was my style back then. It wasn't really until I got into middle school that I started painting, which eventually became the main form of how I create art. Um, I remember I got like my first canvas and I got my first acrylic set of paints. It was one of those like art loft things that you would get for Christmas, like in the full suitcase, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so official. Am I like a CIA agent now? Not really, but yeah, that was like my first set of acrylic paints, and also probably had like a few other things in it. But I really liked painting on canvas. I thought it was so special, and I felt very official. I was like, ooh, look at me painting on canvas. Am I the next big thing now? No, but I thought I was. So yeah, that was my like first introduction into acrylic painting, and not knowing really any formal things about art, I would mainly just kind of color it with colors I thought were pretty. It was all very abstract, you could say, but more likely it was just me learning how to actually paint and how to put colors onto a canvas. For a brief period, I got really into like fashion design and everything. So a lot of my drawings and paintings reflected creating outfits that I thought would look so cute. Um, and so I wasn't great at drawing characters or people because I didn't have, again, that formal training of understanding face proportions. So they always looked like really weird alien people that kind of resembled someone I was trying to draw. If you get it, you get it. But yeah, whenever I would draw these fashion designs, I would just like have this triangle head, and then the rest of it would be most of the time it was very like grunge fashion. It was like, oh, I'm so hipster, because it was like the thing to be back then. So yeah, I created a lot of those. After that, I kind of got into more of a teenagery punk vibe where I would like create things that were like super edgy. And I put edgy in quotation marks because are we ever really edgy, or are we just teenagers, you know? So I'll say edgy, but realistically, it was just what teenagers would draw. With like, no one understands my art, you know, kind of vibe. It was fun. Learned some things about myself. One, that I really can't draw people very well. That's a skill that I need to work on a lot. So while I couldn't draw people, I ended up actually moving away from painting, moving away from drawing, I would say probably halfway through high school. So I'm about like 15, 16 now. And I got really, really into photography. And for years after that, photography became my main medium of art into probably like well into college. So from age 15, 16 to about age 21, 22, I was creating art through photography. And I did actually end up taking formal photography classes both in high school and college, where I learned both film technique as well as digital photography. So I got to do a little bit of both, which was super interesting. It was really, really cool. I got to study a bunch of different artists that do photography. My favorite one being Uta Barth, who is this photographer that is known to create like the perfect blurry picture. And I just thought it was so interesting because I'm like, we don't really want to ever create blurry pictures, right? That's the point of like capturing that like perfect frame of, you know, the person sprinting through the air, not blurry, crystal clear. We have the perfect amount of like everything going on, and it's just, yeah. But no, Uta Barth was she was different, I guess. And so I got kind of like the style of her because I studied her so much. Not that I stole her style, right? Because we never steal styles. It's called learning, right? We see someone doing something, we think it's cool, and we kind of like try to emulate that in our own way. I always get like weirded out when people are like, "You're stealing my style." And I'm like, "No, we're all just artists. We have our own style. Everyone has their own unique twist on things. If you're truly copying someone, is that really fun? No. So you have to put your own unique twist on it." So that's what I did after studying Uta Barth, specifically in college. And I created these blurry photos, and I found out I really like taking blurry photos of light. And I would go out, wait for it, brace yourself, I'd go out in traffic. It's like the opposite of what we're taught at a young age. I had to go out in traffic and take pictures of cars. It would be at like dusk. So dusk and dawn. I don't know why I said it like that. Dusk and dawn. And yeah, the headlights would be on, but there would be some light in the sky, and it would be like that pretty orangey, red, pinky, yellowy kind of colors, the pretty ones. And I would take pictures of those cars driving towards me with that light behind it, and don't think of it as like truly blurry, but think of it as more grainy and stuff. So it was really pretty. I enjoyed the technique, and I learned a lot about how I like art in photography specifically, with lots of interesting colors, lots of interesting shapes, and just techniques that you would use to get like that perfect photo. The only downside with photography in art is that it is super expensive to replace any equipment that you have. And I was using purely digital for the longest time. And then I switched over to a Holga camera, which is film based. And when I tell you, I still have film from like 2019 that has not been developed. It's so like tedious to get that film developed now that I didn't really want to put in the effort. So most of my stuff then went towards digital photography, and it's good, it's fine. But after a while, the amount of software like Lightroom that I would have to buy, and all of the extra lenses, and my camera was getting really old. So I still have it, and I still would love to occasionally go out and shoot some things just to have some, pretty art in terms of photography. And I have done that throughout the years, especially around like Christmas time when all the pretty lights are up. But yeah, it's definitely not something that I hold to and do now very often. It's more of like an occasional thing, whereas it was an everyday thing during that time. Which brings us up to kind of current day me and the kind of art that I strive to make now. So a couple of years ago, I created this monochromatic blue winter setting forest type painting, again with acrylic. So I kind of went back to my roots there with acrylic. And yeah, I just created this nice landscape scene. And I really, really liked it. And I don't know why, but for the longest time, I had to come over this idea that, or get over this idea that landscape art is not as impressive as realistic, hyper realistic art that like shows Ariana Grande and all of her perfections and imperfections, or like some impressive botanical flower that was perfectly folded and shaded in the right ways. I thought that art was way more impressive and had more to do with, the type of art that was real. And it took a while for me to accept that I'm just not that kind of artist. I do strive to practice in those ways, just to build my art and get better. But I now know that you don't have to be that kind of artist to be a real one. It's not good or bad art, it just is art. And I think that finding your own niche that you like, that makes you happy, is the utmost important. Um, and for me, that's whenever I'm creating nature scenes, landscapes, flowers, things like that. Um, and it's not any less than what those people are doing that do like hyper realistic things. And it really did like take an embarrassing long time to figure that out. But I'm happy now that I know it's still real art and it's not like, oh, this is the knockoff go-to version of art for those who really don't know how to draw or don't know how to do art, because it is a specific art that can be transformed into something absolutely beautiful. And every time I finish a painting now, it gives me this sense of peace. Like if I was in that location, looking around, discovering everything that I have put onto that canvas, I would feel really good and really happy. And I think if I get that feeling at the end of a painting now, then I know I've done my job to create the best art that I can for myself. So that brings us into the idea of goals for my art specifically for the future. So as of right now, I'm still feeling like I want to keep creating at a constant pace. And I think if I went into immediately like, oh, create a website, try to sell my art, try to promote it, try to do all of these things for it, I wouldn't feel as good. So right now, my goal is to take things at a natural pace for me. And that means creating one YouTube video a week or creating one painting a week, maybe a couple of paintings a week if I have extra time. Really trying to create art every day for however that looks, whether it's just a little sketch, a little doodle before bed, if it is continuing on a full painting. Some days are busier throughout my week than others, and so I know, on Thursdays I'm going to be super busy all day. Those are like my hyper busy days, and I know we all have those. And the weekends are going to be really free for me. So if I want to carve out time, if I need to carve out time, like I feel it in me that like I need to create something, I will take that time that I decide on and put it towards my art. So my goal is just to kind of keep that mindset that I have to intentionally make time in my routine to create art. And it really helps with my own mental health. It really helps with developing my art as a whole. So to go into something that would be like selling art right away, I don't think is realistic, even though maybe in the future, like a year down the road, maybe I will start doing that. And hopefully others will see the same type of peace and love that I have within my art that I put myself into. So that could be like my ultimate goal for the future, is to share this with everyone and have them love it just as much as I do. Aside from actually putting my art out there and having people love it as much as I do, I think that another goal would be to just talk to others about art and kind of show others that art is healing, nature is healing. There are things out there that are so peaceful that we can put ourselves into and immerse ourselves into to make ourselves feel better. I think there's a lot of mental health issues that are going on right now, both for adults and kids alike. So everyone, no matter age, mental health is a huge thing going on. And as an educator myself, coming from working in public schools, working online schools, working as a tutor, I have seen just so much of, especially the young kids out there, specifically the ones I work with are middle schoolers and high schoolers. They're under so much pressure all the time. And I really strive to help kids have like a positive outlet to channel their energy into. I know I can connect with those kids on a certain level because this was the type of outlet I had as a kid, and it really helped me getting through situations that I had to get through. Um, and also showing adults that, like, I talk to everyone that I can, that I have the opportunity to, that wants to listen about how art has, helped me in certain situations and how I feel it can help everyone in their own situations as well. You can use art as a way to calm yourself down, as a way to channel rage and anger, sadness, hopelessness, grief, whatever people may be going through. There is art out there that can help you in whichever ways that you decide is best. For me, it's painting. For you, it might be drawing, photography, dance. There are so many different forms of art out there that I think people just think they hear art and they're like, oh, drawing. Get a pencil, get a piece of paper, draw something. But realistically, there are so many things that you can do that are art based that don't require getting a pencil and a piece of paper. You can crochet, you can knit, you can sing. Like, there are so many different sectors of art. It's a very wide range. It's not just this one drawing aspect of it. And I think that's what people get bogged down into. They think that is the end all be all of art when it's really not. So with all of that said, I think my main goal in that aspect is to help people just channel love and positive energy in whatever art form that they choose and are doing in that moment. I think if everyone had some type of artistic thing that they were going on about and doing consistently, we would see a lot more pride in our accomplishments and, in creating something. I see this, in ways that people wouldn't really think are artistic. For example, when, mechanics work on a car, this might sound super silly, but that is an art form, okay? You are putting together pieces of a car, you are building something, and for that end goal, that it will be a complete piece when you are done with it. So, my main goal is to help people understand that whatever topics they're interested in, there's a way of creating that sense of pride and sense of accomplishment in whatever type of art sector, in quotations, it may be. So yeah, with all that being said, I'm going to leave you with kind of a goal for yourself to do. I'm going to leave the rest of this video with some nice music for you to listen to, and feel free to finish watching how my notebook turns out. But I really want to leave you with the goal and task of writing down 3 things that you find within your own art that makes you happy, that makes you feel accomplished whenever you create something. And again, it can be in whatever type of form your art comes in. If that's photography, if that's dance, if that's woodworking, if it's knitting, whatever type of art that you take in, that you participate in. Write down 3 things that make you happy and feel accomplished. And if you would like to share them with everyone, feel free to also put them in the comments below. And I would love to hear them, support you, encourage you on your own journey and goals for your art. So yeah, I will leave the rest of this video for you to listen to that music and think about it. And as always, thank you so much for being here, listening in, engaging, and I will see you back next Friday with a new video. Happy creating, everyone.